Hello YouTube and welcome back to another alternate history video. And today I got the 1996 presidential election, which was held between President Clinton and Republican challenger Bob Dole. But in this scenario, I see I got Dan Quayle, who was the vice president under George H.W. Bush, and he had thought about running in 96 but decided against it because of health issues. I forgot what the condition was called, but it was something that prevented him from running, but he did try to run in 2000, but it never gained any traction. For this scenario, like I said, if Quayle did decide to run in 96 and he got the nomination, now I think it would have been a tough battle to get the nomination because we were still kind of fresh off George H.W. Bush's term, and of course his popularity had sunk because of the recession that happened and his pledge of no new taxes being broken. And so I think that would be definitely a disadvantage to Quayle in this scenario because, of course, he'd be tied to the administration being the VP. And like I said, it'd just be coming off 4 years after that. And I think it would definitely put Dan in a tough spot here if he did get the nomination. I don't think he had much general appeal. I think he would definitely still have appeal, like in a lot of the Mountain West states and rural Midwest states, but and definitely his home state of Indiana, I believe. But I believe a lot of these states would still be heavy in favor of Clinton, especially because the economy was doing pretty well in '96. And like I said, Quayle would be tied to Bush, of course, being his VP, and Clinton would warn against Quayle being another Bush and warn about another recession happening under Quayle. So that definitely helped Clinton. That'd be his strength in debates and advertisements. And Quayle actually had a lot of gaffes too, so that'd be another thing that would hurt him. Of course, the infamous potato misspelling. But in his defense, I read somewhere that the school where the teacher actually spelt it that on the sheet on the paper, and that's why Quayle spelt it that way after the kid spelt it on the board correctly. But Quayle added the E because that's how it was on the piece of paper. So in his defense, it wasn't completely his fault, but of course, he was the one who put the E, so that definitely hurt his standing there, made him look like a fool. So I think he'd definitely be prone to a lot of gaffes during the campaign. I don't think it would be the best debater because I think in the VP debate with Lloyd Benson, the question about Kennedy, where he compared himself to Kennedy, and Lloyd Benson said, "I knew Kennedy, and sir, you're no Jack Kennedy." So I think he wouldn't be the best debater, especially against an incumbent president. So that's why I think he definitely would have weaknesses in this election scenario. Like I said, he could probably still win a lot of the Republican strongholds, but I think a lot of the swing states and solid Democratic states, of course, would stick with Clinton. But let's get into it. So I believe Clinton's home state of Arkansas is definitely going to stick with him. He did win it solidly both times, in 92 and 96. I believe Quayle's home state of Indiana will stick with him. I believe Clinton was pretty competitive, and he did pretty well in southern Indiana, which is where Appalachia is. Of course, they well in some of the northern Democratic stronghold counties. But I believe Quayle would still win it since Dole did, and it being his home state. So I think I would hang on to that. So they both win their home states. Some other states here. I'm going to go to the Northeast. So Massachusetts, I'll go to Clinton definitely. I think all the states they won here in the Northeast will stick with them. Rhode Island, Connecticut, Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C. Of course, Quayle was a social conservative and, of course, conservative all around in economics and social issues. So that definitely wouldn't play out well here in the Northeast. So see these states sticking with Clinton solidly. The state of New York, of course. Vermont, too. Of course, it had become a Democratic stronghold around this point. It flipped in 92. Before that, it had only gone Democratic in 1964 in LBJ's landslide. By 92, it started shifting towards the left, so I believe it would stay with Clinton here in this 96 scenario. The state of New Hampshire, too, I believe would be a solid win. I want to say it won about 10 points or more against Dole, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it would be about the same or even better against Dan Quayle because despite Dole kind of being a weak candidate, it was say more of a moderate. But I believe with Quayle being more to the right on social issues, I definitely heard him in a state like New Hampshire that's more socially moderate to liberal. So I don't really see Quayle being competitive here at all. So I give that to Clinton. Same with all of Maine. I'll give that to Clinton too. He did sweep all of it against Dole, so I think he would here against Quayle too. The state of West Virginia would be another solid one for Clinton. Of course, more of a Democratic stronghold back then, and I think he would keep his support there. Of course, West Virginia was historically unionized and working class. A lot of the coal mining industry there. I think would have stuck with Clinton here. State of PA as well was another solid win for him. So I think he went here because of his great performance in Western PA and Philadelphia. Dole did pretty good in some of the eastern counties. I don't think I don't think Quayle, would do as strong. So, and definitely, like I said, Clinton's performance in Western PA, more working class area. I believe it ended him a solid victory there. Same with the state of Wisconsin and Michigan. More working class states, definitely the Driftless area and rural areas of Michigan, the suburbs there would like Clinton. I don't see Quayle really having much appeal here. It'd be probably kind of like a boring candidate, maybe even worse than Dole. Like I say, he wouldn't have much charisma and definitely prone to a lot of gaffes. So that's why I don't really see Quayle being much competitive in these states, just like Dole wasn't. The state of Ohio, however, could get a little closer because it borders Indiana, and I could see Quayle doing good in western Ohio because Dole actually did too. But Clinton's strengths would come in eastern Indiana. He would do decent in some of the southern Ohio counties and would do good in the eastern part of Ohio and northern counties, which is why I think the state would stick with Clinton, but I could see it maybe getting a little closer because of its border to Indiana and that home state factor from Quayle. But because of working class support in the eastern part, like I said, and doing decent in some southern counties where Appalachia is, it's more rural counties, I think Clinton would hang on to the state, probably about 4 or 5 points. Uh, State of Illinois, I believe, would be with Clinton, definitely. Definitely became a Democratic stronghold because of Chicago and Cook County, and I think Clinton would do good in some southern counties too, having his rural appeal. So some more Quayle states would be the Midwest here, like North Dakota, both of the Dakotas. Clinton would be very competitive in them, especially South Dakota, but because it's having a Republican streak for many years, I think Dole would hang on in it. I think he would win all of Nebraska. Same with Kansas, Oklahoma. And I believe he would hang on to the state of Texas, but I could see it getting a little closer. But I think definitely Texas being more of a red state during this time, and I think Bush would come out and campaign for Quayle. That could help give him a boost in the state, and I think it would hang on to it since Dole was able to win it. There's a lot of the rural areas in the state, but Clem would do pretty decent in them too. But I say hanging on to Quayle since Dole won it. Some other states I believe Quayle would win would be Wyoming, Idaho, and Utah, pretty much all the Mormon belt. I don't really see that getting much competitive, especially Quayle being more socially conservative than Dole would be. It would definitely do pretty well in these states. The state of Montana, however, I think would be competitive because Clinton was able to win in 92, but he also had Ross Perot, too, in that state taking away a lot of vote. And he was on the ballot again here, as you see, in 96, got 13% of the vote. Dole did barely win, about 2%. I could see Quayle maybe narrowly pulling it out. Maybe Clinton could, because like I said, Quayle wouldn't be the most charismatic, and I think he'd kind of be weaker even than Dole as a gaffes and things like that. But I think it would narrowly hang on to Quayle. Maybe it could flip Clinton in the end, but I think since Dole was able to flip it back, maybe Quayle would too. But I think it would be a little closer, maybe about a point or a little less. I think it went about here. The state of Minnesota here, it's going to go for Clinton solidly because of Minneapolis and doing well in some rural areas of the state. The whole West Coast, I believe, is going to stick with Clinton definitely. Washington, Oregon, California, and that puts them over the top. But like I said, these West Coast states, I believe, would definitely go for them. Being really to the left on economics and social issues. I don't really see Quayle being much competitive in the suburbs here. So I think they would give Clinton solid wins. The state of Hawaii would go for Clinton. Alaska is sick of Quayle, though. And some other states here, like Missouri, would be pretty close, but Clinton was able to win it. So I think it would win it here, too. Having good rural support in a lot of the northern counties of Missouri. And so I think it could do the same here, win against Quayle. State of Colorado was won by Dole, I believe, but Clinton actually, I believe, won in 92. I could see the Clinton winning it here. I'm going to check to see how close it was exactly. So only a margin of 1.37. So in that case, I might actually give Colorado to Clinton since it was close. I don't really see Quayle. I don't know if he had the best support in like the Denver suburbs, although they tend to be more Republican back then. So I guess he would still have decent support. But like I said, I just see Quayle kind of being even a weaker candidate than Dole, believe it or not. But I just kind of see it being that way. Considering he had a lot of gaffes and things like that. I don't know if he'd be taking this serious. So that's why I kind of say Clinton win Colorado since it was close. The state of New Mexico, I think I'll go for him too because of Hispanic support. And like I said, just Quayle being gaff prone, I think would hurt him in a lot of these swingy states. The state of Arizona did go for Clinton as well. But I believe Quayle was actually residing in Arizona in 96. You know, some say it was Indiana. He actually did move to Arizona during this time. And it was a close state. Clinton was able to do fairly decent in Maricopa County, where most of the population is, but it was still owned by Dole. But Clinton also did good in Pima County and places that normally voted Republican. You see there, those counties doing good in Indian reservation counties. And it definitely did go like in northern Arizona and some of the southern part. And like I said, did decent in Maricopa, though, still voted for Dole. So I think it would be a close one since Quayle was residing here this time, but as some say, it would still be Indiana, I'd say for the most part. So I think Clinton would still win Arizona since he was able to do it in our timeline. Doing pretty decent in Maricopa and some northern counties, I think would be enough to hand him the state. Being the incumbent, the economy was doing pretty good around this time, so I think that would definitely be to his benefit. And same in Nevada, I think he would win that since he did win in our timeline. He did good in Clark County with some working class part of his state, and where Las Vegas is, a lot of the population. Of course, Nevada was becoming more of a swing state around this time. Still more Republican leaning, but it was starting to become a bit of a swing state until it kind of became like a lean blue state starting in 2008. But I think Clinton doing well in Clark County and the economy doing pretty well in 96. He would win the state still. I think it would take Iowa, doing well in a lot of rural counties and eastern Iowa, which tended to be a lot more Democratic back then. So I think that'd be enough to hand him the state. I think Kentucky and Tennessee would be pretty close, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to him since he won them, and Tennessee being Al Gore's home state. Clinton definitely had a great rural appeal in the state, and Clinton was kind of like to the center right on certain social issues too. And Quayle was socially conservative. I would say a little more than Clinton, but Clinton wasn't too far to the left on social issues, as he did sign the Defense of Marriage Act after all, and I believe abortion rates actually fell during his presidency. So that could play out pretty well in these states. And like I said, Gore's home state being Tennessee would definitely help. So I think it would still win them, but I think they would be close. But moving on, Mississippi and Alabama were won by Dole. I think Quayle would still hang on to Alabama, but I could kind of see that one getting a little closer too, maybe. Since Alabama has been such a red state for many years, I think Quayle would hang on to it since Dole was able to win it. And like I said, Quayle being socially conservative enough would still do pretty well in the state in a lot of rural areas. Mississippi, another state won by Dole. I'm going to look at the exact margin. So pretty solid there, as you see. So of course, Clinton did better in more populated counties and more black counties too, like where a lot of the black population is in the state. But of course, Dole did better in a lot of the Republican strongholds still, southern Mississippi and much of the eastern part. So I think it would get a little closer, but because I did go for Dole, still pretty solid. I think Quayle would still win it. But like I said, I could see it getting a little closer maybe. Like I said, Quayle was socially conservative, so I think that would still play out pretty well in these states and would hand them the victory still in them. The state of Louisiana was a Clinton state, but I believe it was pretty close both times that he won them. He did win against George Bush Sr. Like I said, he did win against Dole, but I think they were pretty close both times. So looks like not here in 96 was actually 12 points. By 92, I think it was pretty close. But you see there, Clinton did really good with the black population, and they also did well with blue dog Democrats in the state, a lot of rural areas. So I think for that reason, he would still win it since it was a solid margin that he won it by. And now moving on to the rest of these, state of Virginia, I believe was low under 2 points. It was pretty close. Clinton had strengthened some of the rural counties, especially in the western part, but Dole still maintained support in the Nova suburbs, which were more of a Republican stronghold at the time. But Clinton, like I said, was able to do well in some rural counties, do well in the eastern part, like where Norfolk is, and Virginia Beach, although that was won by Dole, but it was pretty competitive here in some of these cities in Virginia and some of the rural counties. Like I said, I see Quayle being kind of weaker than Dole, just because he had, like I said, a lot of gas and didn't have the best charisma and debate performances. So I think for that reason that Virginia actually could be a flip here because of how close it was. It's Clinton having good rural appeal and, like I said, doing good in some cities in the state like Galax and Buena Vista. And he also carried Prince Edward County for the first time since 1948 that it went for a Democrat. So I think for that reason they would actually win it pretty close still. So it was only about 1.95, close to 2. So I think for that reason Clinton could pull a narrow win in Virginia, having the southern appeal. And like I said, Quayle wouldn't be the most charismatic candidate. Wouldn't be the best really candidate overall. But I think his social conservatism will still help out in some of these southern states. But since Virginia was close, I could say Clinton pulling out that one. The state of North Carolina was another Dole state. I want to say it was about 4 points. And it was 4.69. So it says here much of Dole strength came from urban areas like Wake County and Raleigh. Did pretty good. Places like that. And then Clinton did well in some rural counties of the state in the western part. But it was, like I said, a Dole win. So I could see this one being close, but since it was more of a margin than Virginia, that Dole won it back. I could see Quayle winning it narrowly, just because he would be socially conservative enough and on economics too. So I could see Quayle pulling out a pretty narrow win there, probably about 1 to 2 points. I think it would still win South Carolina, but it's another one I could see getting a little closer. But because South Carolina was really becoming a Republican stronghold around the time, I don't really see Clinton pulling it out since he couldn't against Dole. Like I said, these states weren't as close as Virginia, so that's why I still see him sticking with Quayle in closer margins. The state of Georgia, however, could be an interesting one. I think it would be. It was won by Clinton in 92. It did, however, go for Dole in 96, as you see here. Only by a narrow margin, though, 1.2. Clinton definitely had strength in a lot of rural areas, but Though, of course, they're better in the suburbs and northern part of the state. But like I said, Clinton definitely had a lot of strength there in central Georgia and some southern southwest counties. So I think for that reason that Clinton could pull it out because of rural support. And like I said, Quayle not being the best charismatic candidate, even worse than Dole possibly. And state of Florida's left, which I believe will go for Clinton. I believe it won about 5 points or so. Doing decent in the Panhandle, having good support in Central Florida and Southern Florida, doing good with Hispanic and Black voters, and he also did go with seniors too, because Medicare was a big issue. Of course, there was a backlash against House Republicans, where they were trying to make cuts to Medicare and Social Security, and that definitely wasn't a good look here in the state of Florida, where there's a lot of seniors. So that's why Clem was able to bear with them because of the issue of Medicare and Social Security. And I think for that same reason, it would be the same here against Quayle. And also, Florida typically has been a pro-incumbent state, so I think Clinton would hang on there. So here's the final map. Clinton definitely wins in a bigger margin against Quayle than he did Dole. So, like I said, Quayle hangs on to most of his Midwestern and Mountain West states as I expected, and of course, the home state of Indiana, some southern states, but Clinton wins more southern states in this scenario. That's because I think Quayle will be seen as having a lot of gas and not much of a serious candidate and being tied to his boss, George H.W. Bush, after his popularity went down 4 years prior due to a recession and things like that. So I think that would definitely have a bad look on Quayle because Clinton would be able to tie him to Bush a lot, being his VP, and warn that no recession could happen under a Quayle administration. So I think that would definitely help Clinton hit Quayle where it hurts the most. So Clinton gets an even bigger victory with 413 electoral votes. Quayle's 125. If you agree with this or not, just comment below what you think of it. And if you think any of these states I gave to Clinton would stay with Quayle, or if you think this would be about it, what would happen? Like I said, just comment below your thoughts on it. Thank you for watching. As always, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time.